Hello and welcome to Creator Weekly for September 14th, 2025. I'm Peggy Kay, and this is the last week of summer. It feels like things are picking up again. This week there's a bunch of smaller updates. YouTube, Vimeo, Reddit. There's some updates for publishers that I think are kind of cool. If you're a blogger, you should stay tuned. And so I want to get started. First of all, let's start with what's happening on YouTube. This week, YouTube announced that they are extending multi-language audio to millions more creators. This is not the automated translations and dubbing. This is adding your own translated audio tracks. And the reason why you do that is that you can control what it says then. YouTube says that a video with the alternate language audio track is treated as a different video than the original in terms of finding an audience. So there shouldn't be any downside to doing this. And I'll point out that on the Creator Insider channel, there's a video about this. Creator and chef Nick DiGiovanni says that he uses human, not AI-generated voices for his translated tracks. This is obviously more expensive to do, but he says he felt like he'd miss out on some of his personality when translating to other languages, and they're just sort of nuances in different languages he wanted to have. Of course, that's the problem with the automated dubbing, that it just doesn't sound natural a lot of the time from what I've heard. I also want to mention that YouTube says they are piloting having different thumbnails for the different language audiences. You can see in the thumbnail here, there's text on the thumbnail and it's translated differently. And this makes a lot of sense, of course, if you're going to have your English language video dubbed into Spanish and there's text on the thumbnail, you'd want that text to be in Spanish as well. So that's the big update from YouTube this week. The other kind of fun thing is that you can now add AI-generated stickers to your YouTube Shorts by adding a prompt in the Shorts editor. That's in the YouTube mobile app. You record your video, you click the option to add a sticker, and now one of the options is AI sticker. Type the description of what you want it to generate. It gives you a few options and you select that, and then this sticker can be resized and repositioned. This is only currently available in the US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. So just a moment, I'm having a little problem seeing the comments for some reason. And honestly, if you're here live, please say hello in the comments so I know you're there and tell me what you think. Okay, so moving on to some news about Vimeo. Now, you probably don't spend a lot of time watching videos on Vimeo. This week's news is that they will be acquired by Bending Spoons, which will take the company private. So Vimeo is known for more professional content. It's not like personal vlogs or gaming or things like that. It's more like short films from film festivals kind of thing. And you can password protect your videos. A lot of people use it professionally, like here's the video I've uploaded for you, and then they can password protect it and only the client sees it. Over the past couple of years, they've been adding AI features in their video editor, and they launched a Vimeo streaming service that lets creators create their own video streaming apps. But Apparently this isn't working that well. Bending Spoons previously acquired a bunch of other platforms: StreamYard, which is for live streaming, Bright Cove, video hosting and streaming, Evernote, Meetup, WeTransfer. And based on their previous acquisitions, what they usually do is fire the staff and raise the prices. So that's probably what's going to happen. So what's the importance of this? So the first thing is that Bending Spoons seems to be acquiring a whole bunch of video related platforms. It's not clear what their long-term plan is. They don't like build anything themselves. They just acquire other companies. Um, will it save these companies if they're doing poorly? Maybe, maybe not. But it's kind of sad to see a long-term platform being acquired this way. And speaking of StreamYard, there's a couple of updates for live streaming. There is now a Notes tab where participants can write private formatted notes where that everyone in the studio can see. You can be reminders about what to talk about, something people just thought of. I think this is kind of neat if you do live streams with other people. It's not just a chat, it's actually formatted notes. So that's pretty nice. StreamYard also lets you set up 16 different custom layouts you can switch between. It used to be 8 different options. This just gives you more options while you're streaming. And then I want to talk about a new option on Restream. Restream is what I'm using right now, and this is kind of fun. They now support GIFs and videos with a transparent background. So you can have overlays that are animated. This is one of the default ones. And you can also upload your own GIFs if you want to. I was playing with it a little bit, and it turns out you do have to format it for the full size of the video. And this is an animated GIF with a transparent background. Anyway, it's just kind of fun, and it makes me think a little bit about, how I can make this visually more interesting. And there's a couple of other video updates. This week was Apple's big hardware event where they announced new iPhone hardware, the new camera features, all kinds of things. If you're interested in the iPhone 17, you should definitely check out the announcements. There's a bunch of new features, of course. But I wanted to talk a minute about the free Final Cut camera app. This is an Apple created app, which is professional quality video recording. So this now lets you record in RAW format. It has open gate recording. That has to do with using the full camera sensor to capture a wider field of view at very high resolutions. And you can actually record either vertical or landscape video without switching your phone around. I assume that's because it's recording in such high resolution, it kind of just can crop it. It also supports genlock. That lets you synchronize your iPhone with other recording devices. So this is, imagine you're a filmmaker, you've got multiple cameras and you want them all synchronized with each other. This lets you do that. This requires iPhone XS or later, running iOS 18.6 or later, and some features are only going to be available on the very latest iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max. So this is neat. If you're in the Apple ecosystem, it should be free. You might want to check that out. I want to say hello to everyone who is in the chat. I see Craig and Nina and Andrew. Thank you for joining me today. Oh, I see Jolyn. And it's great to have you guys here. I like to hear what you guys think about this week's updates. Just checking the comments. So, of course, I want to mention that if you want all the weekly updates and news, you should subscribe to my newsletter or read my blog post. There's a link in the video description. You get all the information and details and links in your inbox every Saturday. So I want to switch gears a little bit to Reddit. Reddit is doing something kind of unusual. They are dropping subreddit subscriber counts. So usually you would go to a subreddit and it would say it has this many people who have joined. They mentioned, though, that often these counts are a measure of how long the subreddit has been around and not really how active it is. And so what they've done is remove those counts, and instead they show the number of visitors in the past week and the number of contributions in the past week. That's number of posts and comments. So this is meant to show how much activity there is in the subreddit right now when people are looking at it. And they want to emphasize that Reddit is all about real people engaging in real conversations. I don't know how that differs. There's tons of bots on there and people who use AI tools to make fake posts. This does not address that at all. It does tell you, though, if a community is active. It also is important to note that you can comment and post in these communities usually without actually joining. So the number of members doesn't really show you a true picture of the activity there. And just to mention that Reddit has new Reddit Pro tools for publishers that lets you track how stories are shared on Reddit, has suggestions for which communities to post in, and so forth. So this is aimed at larger publishers, but if you're a publisher and hearing this, you can apply to join the beta. Seems like it's a good thing if you want actual publishers to participate. I know one of my local news sources does post stories on Reddit in the local subreddit. If people engage with them there, it seems like a good thing. So I'm moving over to Patreon, and it's interesting. Patreon keeps adding features like it's a social platform. This seems to be the going thing. You have Patreon and like Substack, and they started as one thing and now they want to be everything. They want you to build your community there. So Patreon rolled out a redesigned creator homepage profile. There are now 2 header options you can add to your profile there, and you can now add shelves of content to highlight collections by theme or series. You can highlight popular posts, popular announcements, products from your shop. And then there's a separate post tag with the chronological list of posts. So this is, again, designed to help creators build a community on Patreon. Patreon allows creators to have free members now. You don't necessarily have to pay. They want you to make it their homepage, your homepage. They also have new metrics that let you see how individual posts are driving your revenue and audience growth. This is, again, a good thing if you want to get more subscribers on Patreon, more patrons. It's good to know which of your posts are encouraging people to do that. Then over on Substack, same story, right? You know, they want people to make a home there. And they have new growth metrics for creators. There's now a timeline of growth, and you can see different sources of growth, what platforms, links, so forth, are building your growth there. Also over on Substack, when you publish something, you now get ready to share social assets for Instagram stories, Facebook, and TikTok and so forth. Basically, you're not just sharing a link, you're sharing a nice graphic with the link. Seems kind of a good thing to do if you want to encourage people to read what you wrote. Or I suppose watch your video or whatever it is that you're posting on Substack. So also on the social networks, quote posts are coming to Mastodon. This is actually kind of a big deal. The reason why Mastodon didn't have the option to quote a post rather than just repost it, it was an intentional choice. A lot of times it can be used abusively. You see that on Twitter, X, where it's like you quote somebody and you kind of dunk on them and it's kind of nasty. In this case, Mastodon has designed it so that when someone quotes your post, you get notified, and then you can remove your post from their quote if you want. So hopefully that makes things better. And of course, you can choose whether to allow quote posts or not. This will first be available on mastodon.social and mastodon.online, those servers, but other servers can implement this as well. And then this is an update. It's a small one, but it excites me. Over on Bluesky, they finally have built-in bookmarking where you can privately save posts for later. For a long time, the only option was like you could like post a reply with a pin icon, and then you get a feed of your posts with the pin icon. It wasn't great. And this is good. I save a lot of posts. Sometimes I look at them again, sometimes I don't, but I think it's a really useful tool. So let's see the comments here. And good to hear what you guys are saying about things. Andrew says, the bending spoons sounds like that company that bought Mavis Beacon Teaches Typing from years ago. I am not familiar with that, but maybe so. It's not a new thing that there's a company that just scoops up other companies. So also Andrew mentioned some of these sound like much better metrics, and I agree. I think this is a good thing. This adds some transparency to the platform, and it's helpful for creators to have these stats that help them craft what they're doing and get more people in their community. So that's good. So I'm going to shift gears to an update that I'm kind of excited about. I know that sounded kind of hesitant. So so for me, the big news this week is that media publishing companies and internet platforms announced their support for the new really simple licensing standard, and that announced something called the RSL Collective. This is meant to be a collective rights organization for the AI era. So the license itself, this is an open, decentralized protocol that lets you easily add a license aimed at AI bots, and it can require attribution for using your content or require royalties. And that's where the new RSL Collective comes in. It's being touted as something sort of like the collective licensing organizations for music, like ASCAP. There's power in numbers. That's basically the idea. So how does this work? You create a free publisher account to register your websites. And best I can tell, this is for people who have blogs, or it's for big companies. And I'll mention there's a lot of big platforms who are supporting this, includes Reddit, Yahoo, People, like People Magazine, People, internet brands, Ziff Davis, Quora, O'Reilly Media, a bunch of them. So those are obviously all big platforms, but the idea is that even small publishers can do this. You create your publisher account, you add this standard license to your site's robots text file, and you can choose if it's attribution or royalties that you want. And then the idea is that the RSL Collective has standardized tools to help manage licensing, track content usage, bill and receive royalties. That's the important thing. Audit license compliance on behalf of its members, all of those things. And as a collective, there's more power in this. You couldn't do this alone. But if there's an organization that can do it, maybe it will work. So I think this is kind of an exciting idea. Over on Medium, Tony Stubblebine, the CEO there, he says on Medium, they have implemented the simplest version of this new RSL standard license. It prohibits AI companies from using stories to train their AI models, but allows them to summarize and link back to your writing in AI-generated search results. And of course, this is one of the big criticisms of the robots text options provided by Google and these other platforms. It's basically like, well, you can kind of block our AI tools, but you may not show up in the search anymore. So this is much better. And the question then is whether the AI companies will actually follow any of these requirements, or if that's going to require some legal wrangling. I expect it to require legal wrangling. But again, you have a collective, it's supported by big companies. There's actually maybe some power here. I'll also mention that there are a couple of other initiatives that are trying to address similar things. The first is CC Signals. That's a new Creative Commons license type for the age of AI. That's due to launch in November in alpha. So it's still getting comments and developing that. Cloudflare also has a pay-per-crawl option. It's currently in beta. So Cloudflare can actually put up a block and prevent AI bots from accessing your content unless they agree and pay. Again, this is something that's in beta. So companies are trying to develop things where actual publishers, writers get something from these AI companies that are just borging up all of the content that they can, and then they produce these AI answers that don't even reference back to the original sources sometimes, or if they do, people often don't follow those links. Andrew says, it sounds like a very good first attempt at a standard for AI going forward. Yeah, I think it does. It seems like they've been thinking about this, and if lots of platforms adopt this, I think it gives it more power. Then I wanted to finish up with just a fun update. There are new emojis. This is the beautiful language we all speak when we're messaging each other. These new emojis, like I think that's a killer whale and a yeti and a ballerina, and I like the one that's like the cartoon battle. They probably won't be on your devices for a while, but you can actually get all of these emojis through the Google Fonts Noto emoji font. Those fonts are free. It's not the same as actually having it in your emoji list, but you can use it for things if you want. So those are this week's updates. As always, I'm going to look back. I'm going to look back 10 years because I'm celebrating 10 years of my newsletter. And let's look at what was happening in 2015. This week it's about publishers again. 10 years ago this week, Apple launched iOS 9 with support for ad blockers. This was a huge concern to publishers that relied on advertising revenue, especially because more and more content was being consumed on mobile devices. So, true 10 years ago, even more true today. So, there was a lot of talk about this change from publishers. At the time, it was not part of Apple's announcements. This was something that was discovered reading the specs of iOS 9. Previously, you could not install ad blockers on the iPhone. And from what I read, these were actually banned on Android at the time as well. So mobile devices could not block ads. But Time magazine points out that in the days since iOS 9's release, ad blockers quickly became the best-selling software in the App Store. So I think publishers were right to be concerned about this. And of course, the response is to try to block the blockers. And I suspect that just makes most people mad, and ads get more aggressive as people try to block them. It's like a war. Looking back 10 years, this is obviously still an issue. Publications and writers and journalists are now really shifting to push people to pay for subscriptions for the content, in part because you can't rely on the ad revenue. And that's led to a lot of these platforms: Substack, Beehive, newsletters, Patreon. All these things allow people to directly support publications and creators rather than them just relying on ads. But it's not just ad blockers that are the issue. Now we have these AI summaries. So people search for something, they get a summary of the content. They don't even need to click the link to go back to the original page. So those people, they're not seeing ads, they're also not subscribing. And I think there's also an issue with the way a lot of people consume news, where you get all these links people share on social media, you go to Google News, all these things, and it's all these different news sources and sites. And the reality is nobody can afford to pay for a subscription to all these different news sources. It's not like the olden days where you just had your local newspaper, you could subscribe to that physical paper. Now it's like, I see news and it may be 20 different sources, and obviously I'm not going to pay for all of them. So I don't think there's a good solution to this yet. They're still working on it. And the bottom line is people don't want to pay. And on the other hand, though, if you want reporting, if you want news, you want articles, you want research, people should be compensated for that. So that is what's happening. Over in the comments, Angie says, has anyone ever published an emoji dictionary? If not, it sounds like a good idea to me and a moneymaker. You should actually look at Emojipedia. That is a website that catalogs emojis and often what they mean. I think the tricky thing, though, like a lot of cultural things, emojis have different meanings in different contexts and to different groups of people. And, you know, sometimes a peach is just a peach and sometimes it's something else. Depends on the context, right? So the other thing, Craig says, subscribing to everything just doesn't work. And that is the problem. Ads aren't paying. Subscriptions are not a good option. How is this going to work? I think we'll still be working on it for another decade. So thank you for joining me this week. I will join on eBoard live stream immediately after this. You can come join us over there. And I will see all of you next Sunday.